Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to KYP. I'm so honored to be part of Unspoken. Thank you to Barzakh as well. This is actually more stressful than performing on stage, but I'm gonna jump right in. When I was 3 years old, the lead actress of the school play fell sick a couple of days before the performance. My mom was a teacher at the school, and the other teachers, her colleagues, asked her if I could replace the sick student. I was younger than her because usually these roles are reserved for the big section, and unlike her, I did not rehearse for a month. My mom told me that I stepped on stage like I had always been there. It was this precise moment that I understood that this is where I always wanted to be. So I looked at my mom with the confidence of a 3-year-old and told her, "Mom, I want to be an actress." I'm not sure how much she believed me. I mean, we all want to be so many things at 3 years old. But regardless, after that, everywhere we went, she made sure I was in an acting class. By the time I was 18, I had lived in 4 cities, been to 7 schools, and changed 10 apartments. Throughout all this time, theater was the constant. It was like my little portable home. At 13, we lived in the south of France, in Nice, and I started performing with a dance group called Les Claudinettes. It was one of Claude François' dancers that opened the dance school and formed the dance company. So like all teenagers at the time, I started to become aware of my body. But performing publicly added another layer. My perception of myself was tainted by others' perception of me too. And for some reason, this self-awareness turned into self-hatred. I could no longer stand to look at myself in the mirror. With all the changes, the friends I had to leave, having to adapt to new environments, I guess I felt I wasn't able to control a lot of things in my life. So as a mechanism that I was only aware of later, I decided unconsciously to try to control my body. Not eating or eating less became a challenge, and one I was determined to pursue. I thought it was normal, and I didn't really understand what was going on, but I just wanted to be thin and look good. And this was even before social media and the stress that teenagers go through with the whole appearance thing today. But looking thin and looking good don't mean much when I was not able to like anything I saw. Some days I found myself too ugly to even deserve to be seen in public. I remember the whole closet would be on the floor and I couldn't find anything to wear. It's only later that I found out that what I had was called eating disorders and distorted body image. As a teenager, it's a very vulnerable place to be, and a very big contrast with the confidence that I displayed on stage. And like most, I have to name it, anorexic bulimics. No one could really see what was going on inside. I moved to Beirut for the first time when I was 15. Of course, I continued theater classes and still didn't know very much about this whole eating disorder thing. I was also aware for the first time that I was starting to become a woman in a patriarchal society, that catcalling and various comments on my body were kind of normalized. لي ضعفانة، لي نصحانة، لي ما عم تاكلي، لي هالقد عم تاكلي، يي اسم الله، عم بيكبر صدرها، إنه بوقتها كان في هلا ما كتير. So unconsciously, it was a lot of pressure, and I started to feel ashamed of my body. A couple of years after that, I had the chance to act on TV with Marwan Najjar, Elia Adabashi, and on stage in Gibran's play The Blind, with Talal al-Jirdi and Badi Abu Shaqra, who were super nice and were helping me with my Arabic because I had just moved from Paris a couple of years ago, and the play was in Fusha. So I would study for my exams backstage before performing, and until today they call me Fafi Tufli. I was also part of a dance theater company, Maqamat, and we trained between 4 and 8 hours a day. So this was all really amazing, but the eating disorders became worse. By then I understood a bit more about them, but I didn't really know what to do. I didn't feel I could really talk to anyone about it. Even my exasperated friends who had to answer again and again to the question, بيننا أصحى. And my mom would try to reassure me and tell me, إنه وين بإصبع إجرك. Actually, my friends at university called me tufaha, because all I would eat, even after 8 hours of training, was just an apple. And when I ate anything else, I felt guilty, and all I wanted was to get rid of it. It's not easy to talk about this, but I think it's important. So this is the time where I started to make myself throw up, and at some point I was taking up to 15 laxatives a day. And I was not really aware of the damage I was causing to my body. I could see nothing else but the fixation on how my body looks. I had to be thin at any cost. No matter how much I weighed, I saw myself as fat. The good thing is that dance helped me see my body in a different way, more in terms of what it could do and a bit less about what it just looked like. So I was a bit torn. While my career was rising, secretly I wanted to become invisible. But how can you be invisible and perform at the same time? Back then, I decided to expand my skills in the same field. So I decided that I wanted to direct and tell stories instead of waiting for the role of my life. What I was actually doing was removing myself from the stage and in front of the camera and hiding behind it and backstage. But of course, I did not know then that I was hiding. So I went to the New York Film Academy, studied directing and script writing. I also completed a master's in film studies at UCL, worked as one of the youngest first assistant directors in London, came back to Lebanon, became a teacher at LAU for 10 years, as well as the director of the Lebanese Film Festival. I wrote a feature script that won international awards, notably by producer Christine Vachon, who I admire very much. I also had to stop dancing at some point because of a back injury, and I started directing dance films that screened around the world. I did still act in films such as Maureen or A Petit Bourgeois Dream, or in the MTV series Karma, and in Munya Ael and Mira Shaib's films that were also screened and awarded at international festivals. I co-wrote, co-produced, and acted in the play Znud Sit. But all this was around my schedule as a teacher. Like, it was not the main thing that I was doing. Znud Sit, that I did with my colleague Marwa Khalil, is a dark comedy about the Lebanese housewife, exposing a life of appearances where 3 actresses play the same character, Amal. So Amal presents her perfect life to a fictive neighbor, and she has all the latest appliances, her husband is amazing, she gets anything she wants. But bit by bit, the layers start to peel, and we see that behind the masks and the buttocks, there's a lonely, unfulfilled woman who buried herself to play the role of a perfect housewife, perfect mother, and perfect woman, and fit the image that society expects her to. I was acting in the play back then, and one day before the first performance, I lost my voice. I panicked. I had to take cortisone and finally was able to push myself to perform. But I knew this meant something deeper. My body was trying to tell me something, that my lost voice was not only physical. Maybe I was burying myself too. Looking at my life back then, I was grateful. I had stability and all seemed to be going great. But I felt something was off. I was not really happy. When people asked me what I did, I couldn't answer. I did not want to be a teacher who acts, a filmmaker who acts, a festival director who acts. I wanted the only answer to the question, what do you do, to undeniably be, I am an actress. And I did not feel that. It was then that I realized the underlying truth, that being behind the scenes and an academic was my attempt to hide and run away from being an actress, from being exposed, and from being seen. Because being an actress meant I had to face my struggles with body image, and I also had to face my struggles with something else I came to realize, which is harassment, that I talk about later in one of my plays, Shwiya Ashta. As I learned that ready is not a feeling but a decision, I decided to be ready. I started a long and intense journey of therapy and healing, and decided to drop my safety net and quit teaching to be able to be an actress full-time. Unfortunately, this was in 2019, which is the beginning of the most difficult period of our lives. Despite the challenges that we all know, the economic crisis, the revolution, COVID, the port explosion, the war, hopefully the last one, I acted in the Pan-Arab series Arus Beirut and in the international film Portrait of a Certain Orient by award-winning director Marcelo Gomez, most notably. I also co-wrote, co-produced, and acted in 2 new plays, Mafrouke and Shwiya Ashta. So Mafrouke is also a dark comedy that I also did with my colleague Marwa Khalil, and it speaks about divorced women in Lebanon, exposing the fact that we don't have a unified civil law, and it talks about the legal, social, and psychological pressure that divorced women go through in a patriarchal society. This feminine theme continued being very important to me. Mafrouke was very emotional, but it was also very physical. And during the play, during the performance, I injured both my legs and had an inflammation all the way from my knees to my feet. But I needed to continue performing and running on stage with heels, so I had to seek urgent help. I went to a doctor that the family knew and who could see me very quickly. I was in so much pain and very worried about performing, and I trusted him. While manipulating my legs, at one moment, I felt that my foot was in a place where it shouldn't be. I didn't know what to do. I don't know why I felt so powerless at the time. All I wanted was to leave. I guess I didn't feel safe because it was late, it was after hours, and there was no one else there. I was under so much pressure, I didn't want to face it maybe. And my mom was undergoing cancer treatment. I didn't want to upset her, and since the family knew him. I was able to tell one friend at the time, who's also a doctor, and she asked me, "Are you sure this happened?" That's a very dangerous question to ask. Because the thing is, when something like this happens, it's very weird. You start doubting yourself. It's like your memory wants to erase things. But I knew what I felt. And yet I was so angry at myself. How could someone who denounces and speaks openly about all these feminine themes, sometimes considered taboo, not stand up for herself, not stand up for all the moments of abuse when she was younger and really couldn't say anything? I really couldn't understand why. Thankfully, I had a very dear friend, Dana Sarhan, who's a sex counselor, and who explained to me that this freeze response and detachment were normal. She helped me process it. But still, this was a trigger, and something needed to be expressed. This is when I went to Michelle Fenianos, who's a very close friend and my co-producer, and I told her, "Michelle, I know what the next play is about. We're going to talk about sexual harassment." It took around a year and a half to write the new play, so Shwiya Ashta. We interviewed women, lawyers, we researched the new anti-harassment law, the flaws in its application. It's important to remember that many people don't really know exactly what is harassment or how to recognize it. And we think we're mainly talking about chauffeur de service, or maybe like women from unfavored backgrounds, or even the idiot guy who stands in front of university and drops his pants, But at that moment, I spoke to Maître Ghada Jumblat, and she was explaining the different levels of harassment and abuse. And I told her about the event with the doctor. And she explained to me that what he did was actually not harassment, it was abuse. And I realized how little informed we are, including myself. And my drive grew even stronger. I remembered the 15-year-old who arrived to Lebanon and was suddenly treated differently just because she was a girl. I remembered countless moments when my body was non-consensually touched and I couldn't speak. I remembered the directors, casting directors, producers who were harassers. And also as a co-producer, I have to go to various meetings with different partners, different sponsors, and many of the men allowed themselves to display harassing behaviors in a more or much less subtle ways. There was something that had been obviously building up in me for years, and maybe my dissociation from my body had also come from these accumulated experiences. What inspires me to talk openly about it all today were the brave women who shared their stories for Shwiya Ashta, but also the Q&A that we held after the play. So every night after each performance, there was a Q&A and a discussion. And every night, at least one person would stand up in front of 260 people and tell their story of being harassed, abused, or raped. This is the moment when I realized how important it was to have a safe space to express, and how important it was to speak the unspoken. Sorry, the phone got emotional. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the love scene that I was asked to do in the film Portrait of a Certain Orient. I was asked before to do such scenes, but I never agreed, so it was the first time. And I mean, I agreed this time because the film really needed it. It wasn't gratuitous in any way. It was important for the story and the film and the characters. It was important to show like this passion between these two lovers. And the love scene is very decent. Like, you don't see any body parts. It's just really, it's very poetic. It's two people loving each other in the Amazon forest. So everywhere the film was shown, everywhere around the world, this was a non-subject. But when it was shown here, and I'm aware of the controversy here, it becomes a specific subject of conversation. So every time there's an interview or a talk, at the end there would be this kind of half-embarrassed question of, oh, you must be very brave to agree to do a love scene, in our part of the world. Yes, I'm aware of that. But do you think that this is the bravest thing I've had to do? I mean, I had to go shoot in the Amazon. So yes, it is uncomfortable. Especially for me, it was. You're definitely very aware of your body in that moment. But it's really not about just physically showing yourself. And you're lending your body to a character, and you're allowing both yourself and her to be watched in a very private and vulnerable moment. So yes, being seen like this is not easy, but it's not as uncomfortable as other things, like having someone in your personal space that you don't really want there. And I mean, there is nothing sexy about a love scene. It's like super mechanical. And I was very lucky to have a very watchful, maybe I should do that, a very watchful co-actor and a very watchful director. So I was very lucky to have a very safe setup actually for doing such a scene. But then I wonder, what is braver? To dare show a little skin and act a moment of real love, or feel completely naked emotionally every time you stand in front of the camera, every time you find the courage to reach the truth in an emotion and allow your body, your eyes, your expressions to be seen in the most raw and messy way. During the world premiere of the film was screening at the Rotterdam Film Festival, and they decided to screen it in one of the biggest screens in Europe. So obviously I was very excited, but I remember a shot that was an extreme close-up of my eyes, and it went really like from one end to the other of the room. And I can tell you that I felt more exposed in that shot than I will ever be in any love scene. So it's not just about our body being seen. It's about glimpses of our soul being revealed. And we must hold that against any judgment and criticism, because there will always be someone to judge and criticize. And maybe this is what I needed to hold all along. It was never really just about my body. It was not about being seen. It was about really seeing myself and accepting her and all her rawness and her messiness. And what a beautiful human lesson that was. I'm often asked, what do you prefer, theater or film? For me, film is the art of the moment, because we shoot out of order, we have to be in and out of scenes. And theater is the art of presence, of being fully here and now, and carrying the character from beginning to end. I've also realized that for a very long time, I was so dissociated with my body that I was not really able to be in the present, except on stage. And maybe this feeling of home I was looking for all along was there. Because no matter where you are and how many times you have to move, if you are at home in your body, in yourself, you can overcome it and you can feel at home anywhere. Film taught me that I should allow a moment to just be a moment. No matter how long it lasts or how fast it passes, I shouldn't try to make it end faster and I shouldn't try to stretch it. Just enjoy it for what it is and just be in the moment. So in the end, being an actress is unstable, it is challenging, there's a lot of waiting, there's a lot of rejection, but it finally feels right. It's like I'm finally struggling for the right thing. Now I know that the roles that are meant for you will come to you. It's not about being the thinnest or having the nicest, I don't know, whatever, ass or whatever we want to have. It's like the idea that you're not meant to fit in a dress. The dress is meant to fit you. We're in an industry that keeps telling us that we're too fat, too thin, too tall, too small, too white, too Arab, too whatever, and not enough so many things. And in the end, I can only be who I am. I will not wake up tomorrow with 20 centimeters taller or like darker skin or lighter hair or what. So in the end, what does it matter? What you're meant to play and share will not miss you. And you will tell that story just the way you look and just the way you are. I repeatedly hear the same cliche. You're an actress. How do I know you're not lying? If only people knew that actors cannot lie. We're the worst liars ever. Because acting is not pretending. If we pretend, no one's going to believe us. Acting is a search for truth. And all I can do is try my best at being the truest version of whoever I am. And I think this is how I can improve as an actor and as a human being. I never thought I would say this one day, but when I look in the mirror today, with all the imperfections, I like what I see. And I look back at the reflection of that little teenager who actually wasn't too ugly to be seen. And I remind her that she too can see things differently. Thank you.
Thank you so much.